Welcome to Nonprofit Stories, inspiring tales from Silicon Valley. We will explore the transformative work of nonprofit organizations and leaders who are changing our community by tackling some of the most pressing issues facing Silicon Valley. So without further ado, let's dive into this exciting conversation. Today, we welcome Lisa Blanchard, the Executive Director of the Grateful Garment Project of Silicon Valley. Their mission is to restore dignity to victims of sexual violence, offering tangible emergency resources post-forensic exams and aiding in the recovery from sexual violence, including assault, trafficking, and exploitation. America's sexual violence problem. Prevalence of sexual violence. According to the CDC's National Intimate Partner and Sexual Violence Survey, nearly 1 in 5 women and 1 in 38 men in the U.S. have experienced completed or attempted rape at some point in their lives. Child sexual abuse. 1 in 4 girls and 1 in 13 boys will experience sexual abuse at some point during childhood, impacting their mental, physical, and emotional health for years to come. Online harassment. With the rise of the internet and smartphones, digital sexual harassment, including unsolicited explicit images and non-consensual pornography, has become a growing concern. A 2017 study by the Cyber Civil Rights Initiative found that 1 in 8 internet users in the U.S. has been a victim of non-consensual pornography.
Lisa, thank you so much for taking time to be on our show today.
Thank you for having me.
Please tell us about the history of your organization. Who do you serve and how did it all begin?
Oh, goodness. How it all started is that I decided I wanted to become a psychologist. And I had been going to school, junior colleges, for years and just collecting ASs. But unfortunately, they're not cumulative. And so I decided to get a degree in human services at Notre Dame de Namur. And as a part of that degree track, we had to do a capstone project. And so what we know of as the Grateful Garment Project today originally started as my capstone project. What we know as the Grateful Garment Project today originally began as my capstone project for my undergraduate degree. And then as a result of starting Grateful Garment Project, I ended up changing my major and getting my master's in nonprofit administration. I basically had to learn how to run this organization that had completely taken over my life and my world and my home and my car and every place you can imagine. So what basically Grateful Garment Project does, or its history, is I had heard at a women's retreat that when people are sexually assaulted and they report it, they're given the opportunity to undergo the forensic exam we know of as a rape kit. And when somebody goes through this process, they basically open a sheet on the ground, you step on the sheet, and you begin removing each article of clothing one at a time that they bag and tag it for evidence. And so when you're all done, you're standing on that sheet naked, they have you come off the sheet, and then you go through the forensic exam process. And then when that is all done, which unfortunately is a very invasive but highly necessary exam process, when it's all done, what are you going to wear home? You've just given up all your clothes. And so if there are not clothes available, what is provided are things like paper hospital gowns, paper scrubs, sometimes an actual hospital gown. But any way you look at it, it's kind of like adding insult to injury. And in by no way do I mean it's the fault of the nurses or the advocates doing the job. They're doing the best they can within their system. There's just not the resources. And so that's where Grateful Garment Project comes in. So to give you an idea of how quickly this all went, right? Because it was really kind of like Godspeed or whatever you want to call it. You know, I'm in the flow. And so I implemented my class project on March 1st, and by May 17th, we were a nonprofit corporation. And from that May We were working with agencies in Santa Clara County and partner agencies in Santa Cruz County. From that May to the following May, we went from working with agencies in 2 counties to working with agencies in 12. The following year, I ended up changing my major and started graduate school full-time. So we only added 1 additional county, so we were at 13. The year after that, we went from 13 to 20. The year after that, we went from 20 to 25 counties. The year after that, we went from 25 to 34, so on and so forth. We currently provide resources to over 110 agencies and 51 of the 58 counties in California.
Why are you personally passionate about this organization and the work you do?
I heard that there was this need in my community, and I live in San Jose. And so I literally looked it up online, found the address for where they do the sexual assault response team's forensic exams, aka rape kit, went there, rang the buzzer. This woman let me in. We walked down this long hall, and I just turned and looked at her and said, "Hi, I'm Lisa. I'm a Notre Dame Dina Moore student, and I want to start a clothing closet for her." And she just looked at me like I was crazy. It was so random. And the most magical and wonderful thing about that was the woman answered the door, ended up being the director of the whole program. And so I didn't have to try to get to her. So what I just did is I just kept talking until she agreed to work with me. And that was in January 2011. And I just kept working with these ladies that ran this facility, getting more information about what their actual needs are, basing it around the parameters of my class project. And we implemented that class project on March 1st, 2011. And by the time I was at 3 weeks into it, because I was supposed to implement it for 5, we had more than tripled our original goals. And all kinds of miracles and amazing things started happening. People, places, circumstances literally just fell out of the sky. One of those amazing things that happened is when I went to go make a delivery to the sexual assault response team at Valley Medical Center, one particular day, there was a woman waiting for me there. And this particular woman ran the facilities for Santa Cruz County. And she began to beseech me to come and help them there. They had even fewer resources than we did here in Santa Clara County. And at this point, this is written on my heart. I knew I would continue doing it beyond my class project, but it never occurred to me to expand it and do it other places. So as a result of this request, I ended up incorporating it as a nonprofit because I had to be able to get people to donate resources, right, in order to do that. The need was so tangible, so palatable. I actually didn't even realize how much the need was until I was in this place where I was absolutely consumed by it. The need was everywhere. And it's shocking how much. I had no idea how much sexual violence was taking place all around me every day. How many people's lives are being touched and impacted by sexual violence in my community.
Share a story where your organization has made a big difference in someone's life.
So what's so amazing about that is that we are primarily a volunteer-run organization, and we are a 100% donor-supported organization. We receive no government money, right? We have a very small staff. There's myself, one other full-time person, 2 part-time people, and then 2 contractors, like one woman who lives somewhere else who does our newsletter, that kind of stuff. Everybody else are volunteers. We could not do what we do without them. So the organization itself is pretty remarkable. The story, the growth, what we do every day.
What specific programs do you run to help those in need?
We started off with our primary program, which was just what we call Resource Closet now, which was just to provide clothing at the place where they do the forensic exams so that people have stuff to wear home. In most clothing closets, we have the ability to stock the closets with every size between 2-3 toddler to a 5X adult, right? We carry clothes in men, women, and children, even down to infant. We carried clothes as young as newborn, unfortunately. So the resource closet is there to address that immediate need, to give them clothes to wear home so that they have dignity when they leave from the hospital, right? Quickly and organically, the next program that came out of that process, we call Beyond the Closet. And Beyond the Closet addressed these issues. For example, what if the sexual violence was taking place at home and home was not safe? What if they were being trafficked or they were commercially sexually exploited children and they needed somewhere safe to be? They were headed to a safe house, a shelter. And in that circumstance, they're going to need more than just clothes to get them home. They're going to need resources for at least 2 or 3 days. And so Beyond the Closet enables us to provide the additional resources. It also gave us the ability to start working with safe houses, shelters, human trafficking organizations, social service agencies, a lot more organizations than we had been working with originally. And so that program, used to be the Resource Closet was our biggest program, but I can honestly say that program, it's neck and neck many years. Here in the San Francisco Bay Area, we are the #1 location for human sexual trafficking in the nation. And we have 3 of the top 10 locations for human sexual trafficking in the nations in California. More sexual violence takes place here in California than anywhere else in the nation. And so Beyond the Closet is a necessary program and unfortunately is getting a lot of use. The next program we created is called Beautification Project. And we did that first beautification project at Valley Medical Center. We go into counseling environments and waiting rooms and different things and do what we can to make that environment more conducive to healing. For example, in a counseling room, you may not want these bright lights above you. You may want a floor lamp with the lower light because it's easier to talk about hard subjects when the light's lower. Maybe you want a chair like this we're sitting in, or a pillow so they can hold it when they're feeling insecure or afraid. We get groups to make quilts that we hang on the wall to soften the edge and the feel of the room. These are little tiny things we do in this project that are really to support the victim in their healing journey and to support the agencies that are doing this therapeutic work. Next, we have a program called Packet Forward. Packet Forward was designed to provide emergency portable packs for law enforcement and agencies on the front line of human trafficking. When they do the raids and the sweeps where they're rescuing people from human trafficking, depending on if there's somebody that's maybe has what they call a guerrilla trafficker, that's somebody that holds them against their will, keeps them locked in a room, maybe ties them to a bed. Those are those kind of stories. And then you have the more romantic type of trafficker that's like the more traditional like pimp type thing where the guy's, a boyfriend and he's got like 5 girlfriends, right? And they're all a family supporting, the process. One way or the other, when they're rescued, a lot of times these survivors are not appropriately dressed. They're scantily dressed. Or in the guerrilla situation, they can be held naked or almost naked as a way to prevent them from trying to escape, right? Or to leave. And so law enforcement needs clothing and resources to take in that situation to not only restore dignity to the victim, but also protect the law enforcement that are trying to rescue these people from any accusations or any uncomfortable situation with dealing with somebody who is not dressed, right? I mean, there's many scenarios there that would be uncomfortable. And then our final program, we have 2 more programs. We have Dress for Dignity, which provides gift cards for victims to purchase court-appropriate clothing when they're going to have in their day in court. So an example of that is we recently had a case where a mother had 4 children and their caregiver were sexually abusing the children. And it came out and the mother and the children had to go to court, and she didn't have money to buy everybody clothes for court appearance. So the agency reached out to us and we sent them 5 $50 Target cards so that they could get court appropriate clothing. One for not only each of the 4 kids, but for the mother who will also be there in court and who is also being affected by this. So that's just like one simple example of how that program works. And then our final program, which is our most recent program, and I think the one that inspires the greatest hope for me, I believe. You see, if I knew how to start a program that would have stopped sexual assault from happening, I would have done it in a heartbeat. But I didn't know how to do that. All I knew how to do was to create something that provided resources for those that unfortunately experience it. So Operation Esteem was originally created to address this. Once you're 12 years old in the state of California, you are legally in charge of your reproductive health, which means that you can have gynecological examinations done, you can have STD testing done, seek birth control, seek a termination. You can also have a rape kit done without parental consent or knowledge. So you have a 13-year-old that's assaulted. Somehow or another, they end up at the hospital and they make the choice to go through the forensic exam process. Well, when they're all done, nobody can contact their parents or guardian unless that 13-year-old signs a piece of paper giving consent, which doesn't happen a great amount of the time, as you can imagine. And so what that means is the likelihood of that young person coming back even one more time for follow-up medical appointments, second or third round STD tests, because you have to do a series of 3, right? Or any kind of therapeutic services is really low. It's when we piloted this program years ago, when we explored it for Alameda, Santa Clara, and San Mateo County, what we found is about 32% of these victims came back even one more time. And those are really low numbers. All of those young people are facing life with untreated sexual violence. Untreated sexual violence for anyone is devastating.
Worried about the dilemma of selling first or buying first? TradeMyHome.com, powered by Your Home Sold Guaranteed Realty, has the solution. With our guaranteed 24-hour cash offers, you won't risk owning 2 homes or being homeless. You can buy first and sell later. Are you upgrading or downgrading in the next 3 to 6 months? Text PAIR to 408-740-7400 for a free and no-obligation professional equity appraisal report. Exclusively for Nonprofit Stories podcast viewers. For more information, visit TradeMyHome.com or call 408-740-7400. Remember, at TradeMyHome.com, your home is sold guaranteed or we'll buy it.
Share a story where your organization has made a big difference in someone's life.
Wow. Well, there are so many over the years. Grateful Garment Project helps so many people. On an average, we estimate we help about 43 people every single day, 365 days a year. So it's substantial. There are stories that stick out in your mind. There's a story that happened where there were 3 sisters living with their single mom who was trapped in that place of working 3 part-time jobs. She decided to move in with the extended family to help support her and to help with the kids. And as a result, a member of the extended family began sexually abusing the eldest daughter, who was 11 at the time. And then when he decided that he'd had enough of her, he began selling her to his friends and to other people, commercially sexually exploiting her. And he then set his eyes on the now 11-year-old younger sister, because it's been about a year later, and started sexually abusing the 11-year-old. And then he decided that she too could make money, and he began selling both of the girls to people for sex. And then he set his eyes on the 9-year-old little sister. And at that point, this had been going on for, I don't know, about 14 months. And the oldest one came forward and told. And it's a very sad case because, unfortunately, the mom did lose the girls because this happened on her watch. And the father was notified, who was remarried, living in Southern California. And he said he would like the girls, but there was no room for the girls at his house. They were going to have to find a new place to live. The girls needed their own room, the court said. So there was nowhere to put the girls. One of them, the youngest one, went into foster care. But the two oldest ones, the only safe place to keep them or to house them was in juvenile hall. So these two victims were put in jail. It's very sad case. The father quickly scraped together money. They moved, they got into a new place. They went back to court to get the girls. And the judge said, where are the girls going to sleep? They need a place to put their belongings. And so that's when the agency, our partner agency, reached out to Grateful Garment under Beautification Project and asked if we could help. And so we said, absolutely. I mean, I was just horrified by the whole situation. Again, not making anybody wrong. It's just unfortunate. And so what we did is we immediately went online and bought a bunk bed with a trundle. We got 3 mattresses and all the bedding and the pillows that go with it. And then we ordered a dresser with 9 drawers. So each girl could have 3 drawers for themselves. We also bought things like a machine that puts the stars on the ceiling and makes white noise sounds, and various things to try to make the room more conducive and safe and a joyful place to be. And so we turned all this around in 1 week so that the girls would have not only a place to sleep, but so that when the father went back to court, the judge gave him 2 weeks to get it together. The judge released the girls to their father. And so it was very successful in the fact that we spent about $1,700 to help these girls not have to be in jail because they were a victim of sexual violence. Now, this is definitely an outlier. This is not a normal story, but it's tragic. You know, I have another story where there was a man, Simon, who was developmentally disabled. He was a ward of the state and lived in a group home. And the people who owned the group home began commercially exploiting him, pimping him out to men, selling him. And one of the men tried to assault Simon, and he escaped in his underwear. And he was living on the street in his underwear. And as a result, he was being sexually assaulted on the street. So when a homeless caseworker found him, he was wearing bloody underwear and a garbage bag, eating food out of a garbage can. And she immediately identified that he was developmentally disabled and was able to get the police involved and get services done. And right away, they got him into some sort of transitional housing. But they gave him a house and it had no belongings. So that's where Grateful Garment Project came in. Not only when Simon went through the rape kit, he got clothing. When he ended up in the temporary housing he had right after the rape kit, he got resources through our Beyond the Closet to have clothing to wear a few days, right? And then when he moved into his new place where he was going to be safe, we provided things like linens and a pot and a pan and some silverware, some things that we take for granted every day in our lives, but are so essential and just living. All of that didn't really cost too much, maybe $300. But for Simon, it meant everything, right? And it's really terrible. I believe that people are good, but sometimes people do things that are really awful, really awful. The sad thing is that it's sexual violence. I'm gonna stop there because I'm gonna answer your question that you're gonna ask me. So I'm gonna stop right there. I caught myself. Do you feel like I sufficiently told the story? Okay. Then let me just say, as sad as these 2 stories are, they are definitely outliers. They're extreme cases. But sexual violence in any circumstance, in my mind, is extreme and uncalled for and not necessary. And so every day we endeavor to change that, to live in a world where sexual violence is the exception and not the rule.
What is a common myth about your work and your organization?
Oh gosh, there are so many common myths. I would say that probably the biggest one is that sexual violence is typically some woman scantily dressed, making bad choices, walking down a dark street at night. And the reality is that the median age for a minor victim of sexual assault in the state of California is 9 years old. It's not a woman, right? Most 9-year-olds are not doing any of those things. They're just trying to be kids. The majority of the clothing and resources that Grateful Garment Project provide, which, by the way, everything is brand new, go to people that are 24 years old and younger. So essentially, our future, our children are being raped. So I think it's a really common misconception. We spend so much time blaming victims. What were they wearing? What were they doing? I don't care if someone's running down El Camino naked. It still doesn't give anybody the right to touch them, right? And so it is very interesting to get the stigmatism of sexual violence. It's one of the few crimes where the victim thinks, what did I do to bring this on? Domestic violence, sexual violence, and child abuse are the few crimes where victims think, I should have not done that, right? The reality, though, is it doesn't matter what they were doing. Sexual violence is not about sex. Sexual violence is not about what clothes you're wearing or where you are. Sexual violence is about somebody taking someone else's power, someone else's control, right? It's about diminishing them. It's about demeaning them. It's about control. It's an angry, violent thing. And so how do we combat that? How do you deal with that? Well, we stop blaming the victims, first of all, and we understand that the perpetrators, that's where the issue lies. It's interesting, they so often sexual assault is considered a woman's issue. But let me ask you, if the majority of the perpetrators are men, wouldn't that make it a man's issue? Just a thought.
Share a story around some unique challenges your organization has faced and how do you resolve them?
Oh, gosh. Well, like any nonprofit or small organization, we experience a lot of challenges. We're a very small organization. There's myself, one other part-time person. One other full-time person, 2 part-time people. So, just having enough people and bodies to get the work done can be a challenge. But I think really our biggest challenge as an organization is we do this amazing thing every day and people don't even know we exist. We just issued a impact report for our fiscal year 2001, 2002. Statistics usually run, a year or so behind. And I almost didn't release it because it was so shocking and so fantastical. But I made the decision that people need to know, right? And so Grateful Garment Project, in relationship to its 6 programs and in conjunction with all of the client agencies, about 115 of them, and 51 51. Let me start that over again. I fumbled that all over. Okay. We just released our impact report and the numbers are shocking. I almost didn't release it because it was so fantastical. For the fiscal year 2021, 2022, Grateful Garment Project, in conjunction with its 115 partner agencies in 51 counties, made our 6 programs available to over 31,000 victims of sexual violence in a 1-year period in California. And I want you to think about That's only in 51 of the 58 counties in California. It's just hard to believe. It's hard to believe so much sexual violence is taking place. And so I think there's a misconception. We do this thing every day, this amazing effort with a very small group of passionate people, and most people don't even know we exist, or that there's a need for clothing and resources, or these things are happening all around them, right? This information is not public information, unfortunately. And so I think that once people know, the mission sells itself. But how do we get that word out there? Currently, I do a lot of public speaking. I basically, where two or more gather, Lisa talks. Right? But the thing is that's not enough. California is a big state. So really getting the marketing out, getting the word out, getting the mission out is essential. Another place that we struggle is just having enough people to achieve the mission and purpose of Grateful Garment. There's not a shortage of great ideas to do. Where the shortage lies is people to help us achieve that. So right now we're actively recruiting for volunteers, whether that's somebody that's going to volunteer 3 hours a week, 3 hours a month, 3 hours a quarter, 3 hours a year. Doesn't matter. You could pretty much step in a Grateful Garment, turn 360, toss a quarter, and find another place where people can make a difference. There's all kinds of information about volunteerism on our website. Also, we are actively recruiting for our board of directors. During the pandemic, we only onboarded one board of director member, and then we started having people term out, and then we started having people term out. And what we discovered is we didn't have enough people. So now we are actively recruiting. So if somebody is really called by the mission and the work we're doing, and they're interested in being a part of that in a bigger way than, say, 3 hours a month, then they can definitely apply to be considered for our board of directors.
What one advice will you give to the victims of sexual violence?
You know, you have to be careful there, because when sexual violence, like I said, is not about sex, it's about control. It's also about taking someone's power away. So the way that you begin the process of restoring that power is by giving people their choice back. So I wouldn't necessarily be called to give them advice, because I don't want to take their choice away. I don't want to say you should do this or you should do that. Instead, what I would say is you're not alone, right? Sexual violence is an isolating crime. It isolates people because they have so much shame. They have so much grief. And so to know that you are not alone, that there are people out there that care, that this is happening all around you, unfortunately, and that we should just love each other and take care of each other and support each other through the process, whatever way that is. If you know somebody who's been a victim of sexual violence, or somebody you know or love tells you that they're a victim of sexual violence, the greatest thing you can do for them is to believe them first. And secondly, is to just listen to them. Listen, be present, hear their story, because that may be where their journey of healing begins, right? Let's not blame victims. They're not at fault. It's like saying that the person who got their car rear-ended is at fault. You know, that's not the case. It's a crime. It's a wrong crime. It's a heinous crime. It's a crime that unfortunately is happening to our children. The biggest advice I'd give to anybody about sexual violence is talk about it. The greatest thing we can do as individuals to combat sexual violence in our community is to talk about it. Because as long as we keep it hidden and dark and dirty, like some kind of secret, then it essentially grows and festers like a cancer on our very society. This is not the world I want for my children or grandchildren. And I'm sure it's not the world that we all want for the people we love. So talk about sexual violence. Don't make it taboo. Unless we talk about it, there's no hope of change. because I believe it's possible to live in a world where sexual violence is the exception and not the rule. But we have a long way to go. And so it's my hope that your viewers and yourself will join me in this endeavor, because it will take many people to help change this. But I know we can change the world together.
It's time for our trivia question to win prizes. This section is hosted by our AI host, Kay.
Hi, this is Kay from TradeMyHome.com, powered by Your Home Sold Guaranteed Realty. Your home sold guaranteed, or we'll buy it. Here is our NPS trivia question. Which U.S. federal law was passed in 1994 to support victims of crime and reduce domestic and sexual violence? And your options are Victims of Crime Act, or VOCA. Violence Against Women Act, or VAWA. Or the Clary Act. Winners will get a $25 Amazon gift card and recognition in our next episode. Submit your entry on our website, trademyhome.com/NPS, or by scanning the QR code on the screen. Only the top 3 correct entries will win.
Thank you for listening to the podcast and acknowledging the impactful work of nonprofits in Silicon Valley. Please subscribe and share this episode with a friend. Thank you to our sponsor, TradeMyHome.com, for their community commitment and for making this podcast possible. Until next time, remember to support local nonprofits.